next talk is by Chen who's up in Binghamton University. And he's already has an article in the Bob High e-library on the AGA website on the art of black and white poetry. And here it is, his new talk.
Hi everyone. The title of my speech today is The Art of Black and White, Weiqi in Chinese Poetry. We all know that Weiqi is regarded in China not merely as a pastime, but also a princely art form. Weiqi is especially closely related to poetry. This association of Weiqi with poetry is due not only to the game's sophistication and the environment in which it is often played. At a deep level, both arts share a style based on abstraction and spontaneity. No game has surpassed Weiqi in the interest it has evoked among major Chinese poets, especially since the Tang Dynasty, when both poetry and Weiqi enjoyed a golden age. This unique cultural phenomenon will be explored in today's presentation through close analysis of a small but representative sampling of Weiqi poems. Decoding these seemingly frivolous poems reveals the richness of Weiqi as source of artistic inspiration. China's great poets drew from Weiqi's patterns of opposition three broad metaphors. Weiqi approximates war, offers paradigms for social order, and teaches lessons about humankind's moral stake in the cosmic game. The first part of my speech is entitled The Approximation to War. Weiqi is, in the first place, intrinsically an antagonistic or warlike game, governed primarily by skills developed in handling strategic operations and tactical encounters. The game thus explores tensions and complications, and attempts to resolve them triumphantly. For this reason alone, Weiqi was popular not only among the military but also in literary circles. For many courtiers, not satisfied by mere literary distinctions, hungered for the military glory that could be won on the frontier. That saying, to be a general outside the court and a premier within the court, 出将入相, was a pursuit of ambitious men throughout Chinese history. Among those summoned from the frontier to serve as chief minister in the 720s were Zhang Jiazheng, Wang Jun, Zhang Yue, and Xiao Song. Zhang Yue, a leading literary figure of the day, enjoyed fame as chief minister 3 times, and 3 times led troops against the Turks on the northern frontier, eventually winning victories over them. He expressed his longing for the perfect unity of literary and military fame by composing a poem praising Cao Cao. One couplet reads like this. By day, he would lead his strong knights and smash the impregnable phalanx. By night, he would invite literary men to write of the splendid chamber. This image of a master of both pen and sword, although hardly achievable, involved many literary men in pondering strategic reasoning and deduction. Du Mu, who held official posts at the court and in provinces, but never in the army, liked to discuss military affairs and strategies, as evidenced in his Discourse of War and Discourse on Defense, in addition to his annotations of the Art of War of Sun Tzu Bingfa. In 843, when Li Deyu, then chief minister, was conducting a punitive military action against the rebellious military governor Liu Zheng, Du Mu presented a letter to Li in which he proposed detailed strategies and tactics for the operation. The fact that both Du Mu and Zhang Yue were poets, strategists, and Weiqi lovers, they both played against national experts, is telling. For men of all ranks, Weiqi combined and stimulated their literary and military interest. The structure of the game, and in particular its abstract quality, made possible a depth of poetic analogy which no other pastime offered. This clearly illustrated in Liu Yuxi's Song of Watching a Weiqi Game as a send-off for Master Xuan's Junior West. Two couplets in the middle of the poem describe the Weiqi skills of Master Xuan, Buddhist monk, from the poet's point of view as spectator. It reads, first, I perceived dotted stars in the dawn sky. Then I saw soldiers fighting in late autumn. Your deployment was as wild geese in flight. Nobody understood it until the cub was caught in the tiger's den, and all were shocked. The metaphor in the first line refers to the beginning of the Weiqi game, when stones are placed upon the board one by one, in a star-like pattern that appears random to unschooled observers. This trope underscores the similarity of Weiqi and war, which rests upon the deployment of troops and stones in endless combination. The second line demonstrates that the battle is the heart of the game, and that those who play it engage in war vicariously. In the third line, the strategic patterns and potentialities of Master Xuan's Weiqi position are scarcely apparent to the spectators. They are puzzled by the complex, seemingly discontinuous patterns in which his forces are ingeniously deployed. Only Master Xuan finally thrashes his opponent. Do the meanings of his moves reveal themselves? Liu Yuxi's poem demonstrates his deep understanding of the coordinated placement of many stones, grouped strategically in widely separated areas on the board. The second part of my speech is titled Paradigms for Society. While Weiqi devotees were all aware of the game's amusing facets, they often went beyond the direct consequences of the game's strategy and envisioned its relations in a fuller metaphorical context. Weiqi provided a poetic means for reflecting essential patterns of human history and society. This was pointed out by Li Dongyang, the reputed Weiqi champion of the scholar officials of the Ming Dynasty. He said, people who are good at making analogies about the world must make references to Weiqi. Observing the world from the Weiqi viewpoint, there is really anything that doesn't match up. The basic correspondence between Weiqi and the world of human action is that they are both complete conflict systems. Weiqi becomes a metaphor for confrontation, and changes resulting from it can be found in long poetic accounts as well as single generalizing lines. Du Fu's line, I heard that Chang'an is like a Weiqi game, from the 8 poems of autumn meditations, 秋行八首, written in 767 in Guizhou, is a well-known example of the one-line quote. There are 3 interpretations of this line. One group of commentators believes that it refers to the loss of capital Chang'an to Anlu Shan's rebellion in 756, and again to Tibetan troops in 763. Others maintain that it refers to swift personnel changes in the courts of Su Zong and Dai Zong. A third group claims that Du Fu's line is a comment on the court's indecision, citing as proof the metaphor's earliest use in Zuo Zhuan. Du Fu's intended meaning, one among all 3 of the interpretations, remain debatable. But what is not in dispute is that the connections between Weiqi and Chang'an related to changes in military possession or political position. The spectrum of subtle resemblance between the game and various aspects of human society implied by Du Fu's line has influenced many poets, including Chen Yi, a leading poet of Qing Dynasty and an important annotator of Du Fu's works. Chen Yi had served in the Ming court since 1610. After Jin troops took over Beijing, he was appointed Minister of Riots in the short-lived Southern Ming court, located in Nanjing. When Qing troops attacked Nanjing, however, Chen Yi led Ming officials in surrendering to the Qing and then accepted the position of Vice Minister of Rights in the Qing court. Although he served the new dynasty for only 5 months, his betrayal of the Ming has long been criticized. In what was perhaps an effort to escape public criticism and to console himself, Qian in his later years became addicted to Weiqi. He knew the best players of the day, including Fang Weijing and Wang Youqing. It seems that Chen himself didn't play much, but loved to watch others play. He claimed to like to observe the games of national experts, and to be able to watch games all through the day and night. He would have avoided the competition because he could not match the skills of the champions with whom he kept company. But the manner of his involvement with the game also betrayed his attitude toward life. He would rather be a spectator than a player. Chen wrote 5 poetic cycles entitled Observing Weiqi Games, Guanqi, with 6 poems in each cycle. These compositions gave him a means of meditating on events he had experienced and of expressing his deep feelings about them. The game's aesthetic and political implications are foremost, as Chen Qianyi wrote in Nanjing. The lonely dry board sounds out in the vast clear sky. The Qinhuai River chokes on cold tides in late autumn. Whitehead in shadows of lanterns on a cool night. In the Weiqi game, in the Weiqi endgame, we see the 6 dynasties. The poem begins with the crisp sound of Weiqi stones pounding on the dry board. Everything the poet implies has withered with the autumn, even the Weiqi board. The second line is more specific regarding the place of the contest and the time, and provides emotional color. The third line describes the scene of the Weiqi contest in 3 juxtaposed images, which share an emotional thread. Whitehead tells the reader that the poet, who was over 60 at the time, is an old man. The shadows of lanterns make clear that the sun has set and provides an obscure, gloomy atmosphere. Cool night reminds us that it is the season of decline and sorrow. These 3 images are imbued with and unified by the concept of last things. The game is played in the waning hours of the day, later in the year, and in the last stage of one's life. This mood prepares the reader for the concluding line, the metaphorical meaning of which is unmistakable. 残棋 or 残局 literally means the end game, but is often used to suggest the aftermath of chaos or a condition of failure and disorder. The Southern Ming in Nanjing, the poet suggests, is really an endgame, and the city's easy conquest by the Qing reminds one of the rapid succession of dynasties that held Nanjing during the 6th Dynasty period. It is not clear whether this metaphor emerges from the aged poet's fantasy awakened by the geometrical patterns on the board, or from rational reflection. Either way, the message conveyed is deep regret for the Ming's destruction. Chen Yi's style of Weiqi poetry was shared by his contemporary Wu Weiye, who, like Chen, was a leading poet of the time and an official who enjoyed the dubious distinction of serving two dynasties. Wu Weiye was the vice supervisor of the household of the heir apparent Shao Zhanshi during the time of the Sudden Ming in Nanjing. After the fall of the Sudden Ming, Wu retired to Suzhou for 9 years, until he was summoned by the Qing court to Beijing in 1653 to serve as the Chancellor of the Directorate of Education. He resigned this position after only 3 years, but the service earned him severe criticism in intellectual circles and gave him a strong sense of regret. His anguish is palpable in his poetry. He wrote, "The ruin of an entire life is owing to a single office. Continued loyalty to the Ming could not be directly expressed, but it found a veiled outlet in his poems. Before his death, Wu said, 'My poems don't deserve to be passed on to the far future, but I labored hard to give them an inner depth. If later generations can know my heart by reading my poems, I shall not have perished.'" Wu's heart can be discerned in his 6 poems on watching Weiqi games, 观其6处, which he claimed were a thematic companion to the work of Chen Yi. The 3rd poem of this set reads, "In leisure, my window facing pines, I study old Weiqi manuals. National experts were not altogether lacking in those years. Do you know that the south wind was not strong? The gauged out eyes on Xu Gate see the troops entering Wu." All 4 lines make subtle use of analogy. In the first line, the study of old manuals, an important practice of Weiqi players, suggests the review of all the political and military records. National experts in the second line signifies both Master Weiqi's players and the national heroes of those years, namely the last years of the Ming. The author retrospectively presents a unique viewpoint, which serves as the thesis of the poem. Although the Southern Ming was destroyed quickly by the Qing, loyal and capable members of the Ming court were not lacking. They failed not because they were individually unworthy, but because of the innate weakness of the Southern Ming court, as implied in the 3rd line. The last line again reminds the reader of the existence of national experts, and the poem concludes with a powerful image. In Weiqi, an eye, yan, refers to a vacant intersection on the board, and a group of stones must enclose at least 2 eyes to be secure. Gauged out eyes then can be read as at 3 levels. On the first level, the image refers to attempts to counter the formation of eyes in actual Weiqi play. This image is intensified on the second level. By meanings it gathers from the legend of Wu Zixu and his gauged out eyes. The real significance of the image, however, lies in the insinuated comparison of Wu Zixu to the loyalist courtiers and generals of the Sun Ming, to whom Wu Weiye frequently alluded in different ways. For example, in Second Song on the Thatched Hall of Donggang, Wu recalls Qu Shisi, a general killed while resisting the Qing, by describing Qu's deserted house. In poem 4 of miscellaneous poems on reading history, Wu Weiye sings of Zhai Yi, who led a military action against Wang Mang's usurpation of the Han's throne, suggesting the analogy with the officials who were loyal to the Ming. Equipped with this historical and literary background, the reader can decode the multiple meanings of Wu Weiye's Weiqi poems, and indeed gain access to the poet's heart. The third part is called philosophizing about the cosmic game. Besides offering metaphorical commentary on martial and political matters, a Weiqi board is a theater of possibilities, a virtual infinite variety of positions and moves during play, every blunder haunted by neglected alternatives, and the return of all pieces to wooden boxes at the end of the game. Such things have inspired rich metaphor over the centuries. Weiqi mimics human life in its preoccupation with contradiction and confrontation. As described in Zhang Shengxing's inscription on Zhang Qiji's painting of man watching a Weiqi game. The first 4 lines of this poem read: "The cosmos is a Weiqi board, the battlefield of black and white, trivial as worms and ants, great as marquises and kings." These lines compare the Weiqi board to a battlefield, where struggles may be as petty as those between insects, or as great as those of nobles and kings. The human desire for competitive triumph is captured precisely in the action of a Weiqi contest. This thirst for victory is an essential subject of Chinese poets' philosophical ponderings, often colored by Buddhist and Taoist pacifist ideas. The notion that man should strive not for glory but for state of peace, particularly when faced with failure in one's career. This tension informs Wang Shi's quatrain, Weiqi. Don't disturb true emotion with a mere game. Just let me follow the course and claim victory. Yet after fighting, 2 boxes take back the black and white. On the board, then, where are the losses and the gains? The tone of self-consolation suggests that the poem may have been written after Wang Shi's last game. The lines reveal that Wang Shi played Weiqi merely for entertainment, as vividly confirmed in the anecdote. Wang Shi's Weiqi style was extremely low. When playing with other people, he really thought seriously and responded to rivals' moves quickly and casually. When he felt he would lose, he would put his stones back in the box, saying, "I wanted only to soothe my disposition and forget my cares. Now, however, I cudgel my brains and labor my spirit. It would be better to stop here." It seems that Wang Shi played only in lulls between his more important political activities. But the poem above is not frivolous. It must be read as a punning commentary on one's attitude toward life. The political and economic reforms Wang Shi had proposed brought severe criticism from conservative courtiers, which twice led to his resigning as chief minister. His final 10 years were spent in isolated retirement in suburban Jiangning, modern Nanjing, where few of his friends visited him for fear of political reprisals from the anti-Wang faction. Possibly because of these frustrations, Wang Shi, a strict Confucian scholar in his earlier years, became a devout Buddhist. He studied the Buddhist texts, annotated the sutra, and wrote many poems in the Buddhist vein. Following the course Sui Yuan, in the second line of the poem is a Buddhist expression for passivity, accepting one's karma. Lines 3 and 4, although not containing any obvious Buddhist wording, reminds one of Zen koans, short verses for intuitive enlightenment. The image of stones returning to the wooden boxes underscores the meaninglessness of fighting, the futility of victory, and the emptiness of life. Wang Shi's use of Weiqi to embody philosophical ideas was responded by his contemporaries. For example, Su Shi's poem in tetrasyllabic lines, "Watching Weiqi games," is rife with Taoist notions. In the forward, Su says, "I have never understood Weiqi. Once when I went alone to the White Crane Monastery in Mount Lu, people in the monastery were all resting, and I heard only the sound of Weiqi stones among the flowing water and ancient pines. I was pleased and enjoyed the sound. This made me wish to learn Weiqi, but I still do not understand it. My son Guo has a rough idea of how to play, and Zhang Zhong, the prefect of Danzhou, plays with him daily. I sit to the side, and the day passes without my feeling bored." The poem itself reads, "In front of 5 Old Man Peak was a place left by the White Crane. Tall pines shadowed the courtyard. The breeze and sunshine were pure and lovely. I was visiting alone and hadn't met a single gentleman. Who was it playing Weiqi? Outside the door, 2 pairs of shoes. No human voice was heard, but occasionally I heard the stones being put down. Sitting across from each other over the lined board. Who understands the flavor of the sea? Fishing with an unbaited hook, are the wishes for brim and crop. My little son is close to the way. He puts down stones casually. Victory is surely pleasant, but the defeat can also be enjoyed. Leisurely and unhurriedly, this is the way for the moment. This poem was written during Su Shi's last and most remote banishment to Danzhou, modern Danxian in Hainan. Following his involvement in a factional struggle at court, Danzhou was hardly civilized, and Su Shi, then over 60 years old, suffered from a lack of food and medicine, poor housing, and the hot, humid weather. Weiqi counseled him in his loneliness. He often watched the games between his son Su Guo, who joined him in his exile, and Zhang Zhong, the local prefect. Su Shi's statement in his foreword that "I have never understood Weiqi" is too modest. For if it were true, he would not have enjoyed watching Weiqi game and would not sit to the side all day long. The poem starts with a flashback to an event that occurred some 14 years ago, when Su Shi visited Mount Lu. The first 4 couplets provide a succession of images in an almost cinematic mode. From a panorama of the famous 5 Old Man Peak, the camera zooms into the courtyard of a monastery, to a lonely poet, and finally to a close-up of 2 pairs of shoes outside the door. Next, the poet evokes the sound of the Weiqi stones in a quiet monastery. The clicking is syncopated with the soughing of pines in the background. The following couplet moves the action of the poem from the past to the present by raising a question. Sitting across from each other over the lined board, who understands the flavor of the sea? The answer, which goes apparently beyond the pleasure taken in the game, is found in the next 2 couplets. The immediate allusion to Lu Shan, Lü Shang, while paralleling the Weiqi image, intensifies the question in this direction. Then Su Guo's being described as close to the way, Jing Dao, refers to the book of rites, Li Ji. If one knows what is first and second, he approaches the way. Here Su Shi ingeniously puns on the word xian, first, suggesting the term xianshou, first hand. In Weiqi jargon, xianshou has a connotation similar to that of the word initiative, upon the possession of which victory usually depends. In this sense, the couplet asserts that Su Guo is good at taking the initiative and thus plays with confidence. But the word wei has a double meaning. It is both the method of playing Weiqi and more fundamentally the origin and the general principle of the cosmos and elaborated in Taoism. This association of Weiqi method and cosmic order is picked up in the next couplet and leads to the answer of Su Shi's question. Victory is surely pleasant, but defeat can also be enjoyed. Is Su Shi's answer to the flavor question and is the thesis of the poem. Most players are elated when winning and frustrated by a loss. But Su Shi says that he is equally composed in victory and defeat. This appears to express his Taoist attitudes. Su Shi presents Weiqi as a microcosm of the human condition. Man occupies a universe in which he is moved by mysterious forces whose directions he cannot understand. When Su wrote this poem, he was defeated in the political arena. Banishment to Hainan Island meant humiliation and hardship, which was difficult for him to bear at first. But he was soon able to revive his spirit, as he put it. I, an old man, and my son Guo, sitting face to face, I like to ascetic monks. But I feel transcendent and content in mind, and I don't change my demeanor. This attitude allows Su not only to survive the extreme hardships of the island, but also to turn the 3 years that he spent there into a productive period of creative and scholarly writings. Su Shi's Weiqi poem was applauded by later generations, but there are always discrepancies between one's philosophy and practice. Ji Yun commented, Su Shi's poem says victory is surely pleasant, but defeat can also be enjoyed. Wang Shi's poem says, yet after the fighting, 2 boxes take back black and white. On the board then, where are the losses and gains? These 2 masters both desire victory. Looking over their careers, they could not put these words into practice. Still, their words are worthy of deep reflection. This observation inspired Ji Yun to write his own Weiqi poems. In the winter of Xingmao, someone came to me with the painting of the 8 immortals playing Weiqi and asked me to write an inscription for it. The painting showed Han Xiangzi and He Xiangu plays in Weiqi, 5 immortals looking on, and Li Tieguai sleeping, resting his head on the board. The second of the 2 poems that Ji Yun inscribed on the painting reads, on the board and beyond it, both men ponder, still the concern for profit and loss of the human world. How can they compare with the silly immortal, stupid and senseless, with spring breezes and butterflies, deep he is in dreamland? Ji Yun equates the desires of Weiqi players and spectators for victory and defeat. Even the immortals are subject to it, cannot escape it. Owner Li Tieguai, here nicknamed the silly immortal, sleeps soundly, not unduly concerned with worldly affairs. This aloofness shows that Ji Yun's approach to life is even more philosophical than that of Wang Shi and Su Shi. Yet Ji Yun is critical of himself as he is of others. I'm old now. Reviewing my own life, I could not put the words into practice either. talk is cheap after all. To what extent these poets practiced what they preached cannot be considered here. What is certain is that the vagaries of the life and death, and the triviality of victory and defeat, are vividly portrayed in Weiqi poems. The intellectual subtlety and intrinsic beauty of creative conception and execution in Weiqi has attracted generations of Chinese literati, providing a framework for poetic articulation of the human spirit. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chen. We appreciate the talk. And,